Would you pretend to be my husband? The female mechanic asked. And I smiled, do I get to kiss you? The rain was falling softly when my car suddenly died on a lonely road outside a small town. I stepped out and lifted the hood, staring at the engine as if it would magically fix itself. I knew absolutely nothing about cars. I was about to call a tow truck when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw a young woman wearing blue overalls. Her hands were stained with grease, and her dark hair was tied in a ponytail. She looked at me and smiled. "Car trouble?" she asked. I nodded. Without another word, she walked over and looked under the hood. A few minutes later, she tightened something, adjusted a wire, and said, "Try it now." I got into the car and turned the key. The engine started immediately. I looked at her in shock. "You fixed it?" She laughed. "That's usually what mechanics do." "You're a mechanic?" I asked. "Is that so surprising?" she replied with a grin. I smiled awkwardly. "A little." She extended her hand. "I'm Emma." I shook it. "Daniel." I tried to pay her, but she refused. "Just consider it a good deed," she said. I thanked her and drove away, but for some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about her smile. 2 days later, I passed through the same town again and saw a small garage with a sign that read, "Emma's Auto Repair." I couldn't help smiling. I parked and walked in. Emma was working under a truck. When she saw me, she wiped her hands and laughed. "Don't tell me your car is broken again." "No," I said. "I just came to thank you properly." She smiled and invited me inside. We talked for almost an hour. I learned that she had inherited the garage after her father's death. Many people doubted her because she was a woman in a profession dominated by men, but she never gave up. Over the next few weeks, I found excuses to stop by the garage. Sometimes I brought coffee. Sometimes I claimed I needed my tires checked even when they were perfectly fine. Slowly, we became friends. Then one afternoon, I arrived and noticed that Emma looked worried. She was sitting on a stool, staring at the floor. "What's wrong?" I asked. She looked up at me. "Can I ask you something strange?" "Sure." She took a deep breath. "Would you pretend to be my husband?" I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" She sighed. "My aunt is coming tomorrow. She's very sick, and she's always dreamed of seeing me happily married. I never had the heart to tell her I'm still single." I stared at her for a moment. She looked embarrassed. "Forget it," she said quietly. "It was a stupid idea." A smile slowly appeared on my face. "If I pretend to be your husband?" I said. She looked at me nervously. "Do I get to kiss you?" For a second, she looked completely shocked. Then she burst out laughing. "Only if it's necessary for the performance." I laughed too. "Then I'm in." The next day, we drove to her aunt's house together. Emma seemed nervous, so I reached over and gently squeezed her hand. She looked at me and smiled. Her aunt was a sweet elderly woman with kind eyes. The moment we walked inside, she looked at us and started crying with happiness. "You finally got married," she whispered. Emma knelt beside her and hugged her tightly. The entire day, we acted like a married couple. We sat together, cooked together, and answered countless questions about our imaginary relationship. Surprisingly, it felt natural. At one point, her aunt looked at me seriously. "Emma acts strong," she said softly, "but she's lonely. Promise me you'll take care of her." I looked at Emma. For the first time, I noticed the sadness hidden behind her smile. I nodded. "I promise." Later that evening, after we left the house, we sat quietly in my car. Rain gently tapped against the windshield. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, I turned toward her. "Are you lonely?" I asked. She stared out the window. "Sometimes." "And if someone wanted to stay by your side?" She looked at me. "I'd probably be scared." I smiled. "I think I'm scared too." She looked confused. "Why?" I took a deep breath. "Because somewhere between the fake marriage and all those visits to your garage, I started liking you." She didn't say anything. I continued, "Today, when I held your hand, I didn't want to let go." Her eyes filled with tears. "Daniel," she whispered. I smiled softly. "Maybe I don't want to pretend anymore." A tear rolled down her cheek. Then, very slowly, she reached for my hand. "Maybe," she said quietly, "I don't want to pretend either." We both laughed softly through our tears. Outside, the rain continued to fall. I looked at her and smiled. "So, if I asked to kiss you now?" She laughed and wiped her eyes. This time, she said gently, "It wouldn't be acting." And for the first time, I kissed her not as her fake husband, but as the man who hoped to become her real one someday.